Hello, welcome to the second episode of Fish TV. I'm Phil Wilkes and this is Dr. Duncan Warning.
Hello.
And together we're the founders of 14 Fish. So thanks to everyone who watched the first episode. We had a lot of fun making it and hopefully we've got some exciting things to talk about today.
You may have heard from last time if you've watched last time, but this is a new concept which we're trying out. What will really make the show work is if you can suggest content, things you'd like us to talk about. We've got a lot of expertise we can draw on if we don't know ourselves.
Yeah.
And the way to ask questions or post it is to comment below on YouTube comments. Ping us on Facebook, comment on Facebook, send us a contact on the website.
Tweet at 14Fish. We're on Snapchat. You say Instagram?
Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram. Live chat on the website, email us. Whatever.
Anyway, basically. Send us a video.
Yep, we'd love that. Okay, so the main topic for today is how to get ahead in your appraisal. Would you like to take the lead on this, Duncan, as normal?
Kick off.
Being our resident appraisal and revalidation expert, former GP.
So, thinking about this topic, and this is a very easy to say as I do as I say, but not as I do, because I certainly wasn't someone who would be very prepared every appraisal. I think you may have heard me speak in the last episode that actually I always had very positive experiences from my appraisal. And each time I'd come out of my appraisal and think, right, I'm going to be much better prepared next year, which of course I wasn't. But the question is how to get ahead in appraisal. Over the last 4 years, Phil and I have been working and really enveloped in appraisals and developing our appraisal system and providing it. So we've sort of lived and breathed appraisals. I suppose like anything really, and the advice I would give, which is fairly obvious, is about being prepared. There's a great quote which I'm using a lot at the moment. To not prepare is to prepare to fail. The wording, the official wording, I think it was a Benjamin Franklin quote.
Yeah. Wow.
It worded slightly differently, but I can't remember the exact wording. But
I've heard it before. It's a famous one, isn't it? Yeah. But very applicable.
He's an American chap, I believe, of some description. It's in my mind because I went to a talk recently, didn't prepare it very well, and of course I was disappointed with the outcome, although you say you enjoyed it. But
yeah.
So the key with appraisal, I think, is trying to find a method of recording CPD as the year goes on that's easy. I tried lots of different ways. I tried having just a piece of paper on my desk, recording puns and dens, which is patient unmet needs, doctor's unmet needs, sort of learning notes that I'd jot along. I tried having an Excel spreadsheet open on my desktop, a Word document. I'd sort of they'd all work for me for a week or so, and then I'd forget to keep going with them. But really, it's about finding a method for you that you can doesn't take much time, so that it can become part of sort of human nature, a sort of habit. Habitual, thank you. That you do as you go along through the day, and then when you come to do your appraisal, it'll all be there, and actually you then go through and can tidy it up a bit like doing a bit of gardening, take out the stuff you think you don't want anymore. Pruning, yes. And reflect or sort of add more detail to stuff that's developed.
Would you reflect as you go along?
I would reflect as I go along, but
that's easier.
Yes, but actually then I think you come and you'll look and say, last year I put this in there that I didn't know about this new X medication, but actually since then I've also learnt this on top of that. So you can really embellish, add to detail to stuff, and I think it's very easy to do that if you just record very briefly through the year, and it's also then turning something that's a CPD entry, just a bit of learning itself, into almost a quality improvement activity or a reflective account if you're a nurse. Quality improvement activity if you're a doctor, because you're then taking something that's CPD and you're building on it and saying that as time's gone on, this has changed my practice, or how this has changed my practice. I think CPD is the main thing to get into the habit of recording.
Yep.
Still have in the back of our minds that, you know, if a significant event happens that we're involved in, if we're doing a bit of work like an audit or looking at our practice, then that's going to be a reflective account if you're a nurse, or a quality improvement activity. And again, just jotting that down, but perhaps not doing all the detail, but at least then when you come to prepare for your appraisal, you can then add more detail. So I would probably leave it at that, and then actually when you come to prepare your appraisal, do the rest of the details like the health statement, the probity, but that can be done really at the time. There's probably little to be gained by doing that earlier on.
Gotcha.
And in the back of my mind have my PDP. PDP is something I'm passionate about. I think we can really develop the PDP, the personal development portfolio, more, but actually we on our system haven't got it as good as we could, and actually that's something we as a team have been looking at recently. I'm really excited about how we're going to develop that, but try and make that a bit more live. So that's something I'd try and sort of keep dipping in and out as the year goes on. But really it's about trying to find a method, and of course we think we've got the best way with our emailing in on the CPD. But something that suits you, that's the way I think you can get ahead.
Great. That was very...
I need a bit of sip of coffee after all that.
Informative, yeah.
Maybe without talking too much.
Cool. Okay, we've also had some questions come in the last week via support or social media and stuff. So should we take a look at those?
Why not? Why not?
Liz? Don't be shy. So we had one in from a doctor saying, if we reflect on a CPD entry, can we then double the points? And I'm writing saying, aren't I, that it used to be the case that if you did some CPD but you could demonstrate impact, then you could double the points, but that's not the case anymore.
That's
right.
That's right. It was
Something
for
like
when Revalidation first came in, the Royal College GPs, which actually this was different to the other colleges. So this is for doctors. The Royal College had a sort of practice where it said if you could demonstrate impact, that actually you changed your own practice or other people's, then you could double the points. That's no longer the case. The Royal College of GPs has changed that to bring it in line with the other colleges, and it is now saying that actually 1 hour of learning essentially equates to 1 credit.
So that's nothing to do with reflection.
That's nothing to do with reflection, you're right. And that's why this is a very good question. It applies to both doctors and nurses, because actually CPD without reflection, without saying how has it changed my practice, how has it reaffirmed what I did, and I did warn you in the last episode we're going to keep coming back to reflection. The appraiser doesn't really want to see CPD without reflection, without that personalising of the CPD. It may still be worth recording CPD that hasn't got reflection for my own reference as a sort of to go back to later, but actually in terms of putting in a new appraisal or for your nurse revalidation, it's less valuable. No one wants to know that actually you sat in a talk for 6 hours and didn't learn anything. You shouldn't really be recording 6 hours of learning there. It's about what did you learn and how has that changed what you do.
Cool. Okay, should we move on to the second question? Thank you, Liz. Okay, so this came in from a nurse via Facebook, and of course you can post on our Facebook page, or you can just privately message us on Facebook, so you're not making your questions public. And she said, I've taken part in an audit. Can this go into my reflective accounts section?
A very good question, and in some ways not dissimilar to the last question. And although this is nurse specific, again, it applies to doctors and nurses. So really, when you're talking about an audit, and we talk with the nurse revalidation, they have reflective accounts. With doctors revalidation, really this applies to sort of quality improvement activities. And it's taking a bit of learning beyond that which would be defined as CPD, and then sort of doing a bit more work on it, doing an audit, sort of assessing how you practice. And absolutely that would then be able to be included in the reflective accounts section or the quality improvement section, activity section for doctors. But of course the key here, and I suspect you know what I'm going to say, is that as long as it includes reflection, so you personalise it. So we did this, so in some ways it doesn't matter actually if the audit didn't involve your own patients or your own practice.
Right, okay.
But it's about what you learned from that process.
Yeah.
But ideally it would be an audit on your own practice, but that depends on the circumstances. But absolutely into the reflective account section.
Cool. And our final question. Thank you. So this was a talk that you did, Duncan.
When you say our final question, I feel like, have I passed or something?
After the EU referendum, I've decided I want to emigrate to Australia. What will happen to my revalidation if I decide to come back? Very topical question.
Yes.
So what would happen?
This is a question I have got quite a bit when I go and do talks about revalidation to doctors, but also is a question I used to have in a previous role when I worked at the Wessex LMCs. And I think the same answer applies to doctors and nurses, but obviously my insight into how this relates to nurses is I'm not as experienced, so that's the question, but really it's a principal answer. And my answer is always that, it's great you're asking the question, because asking the question before you've had a period out of practice, whether that's emigrating to Australia,
right,
or a long period of planned leave to have a sabbatical or a holiday, so really any leave over a year, but even any sort of leave that you're not sure about, I would always contact the deanery, so contact Health Education England in the area that you are and discuss it with them, and then they can tailor a plan, because there's no one fixed solution for this, especially if you're contacting them beforehand. If you come back after a period of leave and you've not spoke to them, right, you will be put into a box. Again, they'll speak to you and talk about what you did when you're away, whether you kept up to date, because there are solutions where you can actually continue to have appraisals or continue to meet revalidation requirements when you're away. We use technology such, I've heard of people having, I know using our system, they've had Skype appraisals in America.
Oh, really?
Not ideal, and better is face-to-face, and some will fly back for an appraisal, right, but obviously that's quite expensive and has other implications. But basically, so I suppose the good news is this is possible to continue to stay on the register, but strong advice would be speak to your appraisal service or Health Education England, definitely Health Education England in the area you are, and just talk to them about what you're planning to do and what they would advise, so you can get a plan in place, and then you're showing them you're engaging and you're keeping up to date.
Cool. So that concludes the episode, I think. Thank you very much for watching. Before you go, remember to connect with us on all the different, Facebook and everything. So we're on Facebook as 14 Fish. We've got a YouTube channel, so subscribe to that, please. We're on Snapchat. That's 14 Fish again. Instagram, and not forgetting, follow us on Twitter at 14 Fish. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.
Thank you. Preparing for Fish TV in the studio.
That's going to be amazing. Have a look.
I can't do this.